and you look at some of the other teams as well over in China, and try to bring them all together. Not unlike the NHL, for example, when you try to make Team Canada, well, these guys don't really play with each other too often. So when they form that national team, I guess it does take a while to get that chemistry.
And what's even funnier is often these players play with each other for those professional seasons, and then they have to switch their mentality and play against each other.
Seamac with his first serve of the evening. Set at the front. Garcia puts it well out of bounds on the far side, and Canada gets the point. They'll keep the serve. 9-5. Seamac now continues to hold serve.
Canada's done a good job so far this set of eliminating those unforced errors.
Seamac sails it over. Franco with a desperate move. Now Garcia's going to have to send it over. Looked like it might have got out of bounds, but Canada keeps it in. Perrin sends it towards the far back of the court, just kept in by Neary. Pineda now has to bump that one over. Canada sets it up. It's Schneider! And a big kill by Schmidt, just in bounds. 10-5. Canada's opened up a 5-point lead.
Now that was a quick middle attack. Oftentimes you see the setter kind of hold on to that ball a little bit, but that just literally came out of his hands right away and was down on the ground.
Seamac still with the serve. Guatemala returns. Schmidt sends it right back off the bump. Pineda, the libero, setting it up. Neary towards the back of the court again, and it is played by Seamac, and he volleys it right over his head out of bounds. So a point now for Guatemala. 10-6 the score in favor of the Canadians. Garcia to serve for the first time. Oscar Garcia, well back of the baseline, steps into it and sends it straight into the net.
Now, if I were the Guatemala coach, I'd be telling my players to serve as tough as possible, to try to put Canada in uncomfortable situations so that their attack falters a little bit. But maybe that's what their serving strategy is right now, and sometimes you're going to get some misses.
Nice play at the net by Canada, and again, Rudy Verhoof. Couple of nice plays there, and he gets credit with the point as well. 12-6. Canada's doubled up the Guatemalans, who decide to take a timeout and try to regroup. And you talked about the aggression behind the serving, and like you say, I guess you can try and force them into perhaps trying to control what's a more difficult ball to control for the Canadians, but at the same time, your accuracy is really going to take a hit.
Exactly, and I've played on teams before where the coach says, hey, you know what, I don't mind if you guys miss a couple serves as long as you're really going for it. But if you miss serves and those serves don't have as much velocity or aren't well placed, that's when the coach gets mad. He doesn't mind if you're making that error while trying to put a lot of pressure and force that other team on reception to make some errors.
And in a case where Guatemala, who again is definitely the underdog in a match against Canada, is that sort of a necessity to try and go for that aggression?
Well, I think whenever you're the underdog, you have to take some risks, and one of those risks is just serving tough.
Neary with a power move, and Canada can't quite get there. Jumping over is just Dustin Schneider over the end advertising boards and can't get it back into play. So Guatemala getting the point, 12-7. And now serving for the Guatemalans is Brendan Franco. Franco gets his serve over cleanly. Vigras, now Schmidt back in play. Perrin towards the back of the court as he likes to do. Neary tries to power it over, but too far. And it's out of bounds. 13-7. Canada gets that point back, still with a 6-point lead, and Gord Perrin now will serve.
You could see Neary really going for the hands on that shot, and I think Guatemala being a bit of a shorter team, they have to look for Canada's hands because Canada's got the huge block up there.
Neary sends it over. Schneider sets it up for Perrin. Block attempt at the net. Fails. That was Blanco, and he sent it out of bounds. So 14-7, Canada in the lead. And I guess if you're Guatemala as well, you can't play too close to the net because you're up against so much taller Canadians who are just going to block you, no problem.
Yeah, if you're playing against a big blocking team, you usually ask your setter to set the ball a little farther off, gives you a little bit more angles and options, and also more options to deal with the blocker's hands and really maybe hit off the tips or off the edges of that block.
Schmidt looking for the back corner. Nice volley action here for the first time in the game. Neary puts it over, but a nice block at the front of the net. Verhoof 15-7, Canada with a big point. Gord Perrin still serving for Team Canada. One of several BC boys on this team, and a nice play at the net. Power move by Blanco, and he found some open court right in the middle. 15-8. Ralda now to serve for the Guatemalans. Gets it over cleanly. Schmidt, and a nice tip-over move. Fred Winters, the captain, he saw that open space towards the front of the net. And just decided to lift the ball over gingerly, and 16-8. That's a familiar score we've seen so far, Claire, at that second timeout.
It's been really interesting to see the teams so close together, and I'd say a little bit more in the first two series we saw today, St. Lucia versus the United States, and then Bahamas versus Cuba. Those games all had really tight scores up until that 8-point timeout, and then one team always just took off, and no different in this game.
Canada sitting nicely right now, 16-8. And maybe just a quick rundown of some of the early stat leaders, Claire.
Well, Canada's leading with 4 blocks. Guatemala has no blocks so far. And I think what's interesting is that I'm expecting a little bit more defensively from Guatemala. They are a shorter team, which typically means more speed and agility, but they haven't really been putting on a very big defensive show so far. That might be something that they adjust to as they start to learn some of the tendencies of the Canadian hitters, but we'll have to watch and see what happens as the game progresses.
So after that second timeout, Canada up 16-8. And back to serve now for Team Canada is Rudy Verhoof. Play the front of net, Reyes, but a nice block by Schmidt. Falling back on the Guatemalan side, 17-8. Verhoof will retain serve. Verhoof has played plenty in these parts. No stranger. Nearly catching the Canadians off guard there, but Winters slams it towards the back. It's sent right back out of defense. Garcia. Schmidt now with the point as it did touch the ground. Guatemala thinks they had the point, but you see both back linesmen clearly indicated it had already touched the floor. So Canada gets the point, and that was Schmidt getting credit, and it...
Now, the first referee can always overrule, but when you see 2 linesmen clearly indicating with their flags that the ball has hit the ground, it would be bad form for that first referee to overrule that.
2 sets of eyes seeing the same thing. Reyes now, but another block at the front of the net. CMAC will get credit for that. 19-8. Canada in the lead. They're cruising along nicely now, and another timeout taken by the Guatemalans.
Now, if I'm the Guatemalan coach at this point, I'm going to tell my guys to really try to work around the Canadian block because they've just gotten blocked twice in the past 3 points. And so obviously they need to figure out a way to work with that challenge. Maybe that means the sets need to be a little farther off the net because if the set's too tight, you're just going to be lost as a hitter and you have no choice but to go straight into that block. Or maybe try to challenge the Canadian defense with a tip or a roll shot to an open spot.
Well, Canada hasn't had much trouble so far. Again, like the previous 2 matches, a little close earlier on, but Canada has now really pulled away. And Rudy Verhoof will retain serve. Lots of red and white in the building here at the Langley Events Center, supporting their locals. Team Canada here, hosting the event.
Definitely the biggest crowd we've had all day.
Oh, without question. And an attack there, a little far back, and like you say, maybe there's that height disadvantage, but it's sent right into the net. That is Jose Gonzalez, so they made a substitution as well. The Guatemalans, Team Canada, I believe, has kept the same on the court. Nice play at the net. CMAC and Schmidt there as well.
Now at this point in the game, Canada really has controlled this set. And for Guatemala, I think their goal is to gain a little bit of momentum going into this second set because at this point it's almost impossible to come back from a 21-8 deficit.
Verhoof sets it towards Winters. Garcia with a nice dig keeps it alive. Reyes now tries to put it over the net. Canada with the block, still in play. Gonzalez and a nice block. The Canadians get the point, 22-8. And like you say, I mean, really, the Guatemalans cannot only not make any mistakes, serving or otherwise, but they're going to have to win a lot of the next points.
Yeah.
They're in a big hole here.
Yeah.
Pineda, the libero, sets it up at a nice move at the net. Winters, but point is going to go to the Guatemalans.
That's one of the first times, though, we've seen in this set the Guatemalans actually use that Canadian block to their advantage.
Schneider sets it up at the front of the net. Perrin slams it down. Nice attack by him, 23-9. Canada getting that point back, and now just 1 point away from set point. Gavin Schmidt with the serve for Team Canada. Sends it over, Pineda. And a point will be given to Guatemala. And did Winters just nudge the net there a little bit?
They actually called it an illegal attack, which meant they felt that Winters interfered with the setter trying to make a play.
So point going to Guatemala. The serve sent straight into the net off Blanco. So it is now set point Canada, 24-10. Winters, the captain, with the serve. Gets it over cleanly. Pineda handles it. Set up for Garcia. Sends it towards a hole in the middle. Kept in, though. Now Schneider gets it over. And play still continues. Wow, nice dig there. Garcia gets it over. Now set up by Winters. And a big attack by Schmidt. Gets the point. Canada wins the first set 25-10. And a nice volley to finish off the first set. But Canada cruising along to a 25-10 victory, and we'll take a quick break here and be right back to regroup for set number 2. Canada, though, in the lead. Jeff Sargeant and Claire Hanna back with you here, and We had a bit of audio go over the PA system here in-house at the LEC.
Jeff, that could have been your Canadian Idol moment. You could have been discovered over the PA system.
Maybe I was.
Here at the Langley Event Center, and you missed your chance. So if that happens again, I'm going to take it. It might be a bit of a William Hung moment, but whatever. I'll take it.
There's a name from the past. Canada up 1-0 here against Guatemala. As we see some replays from the first set, Claire, and just that was a pretty dominating effort by Team Canada.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting is this is the third game of the day, and for almost all of the first sets, it's been a lot closer, a lot farther on into the match. And Canada looks like one of the most confident and comfortable teams at this tournament right now, which is a great way to look.
Perrin gets the first point for Canada in this second set. Guatemala started with the serve, but Gord Perrin with the point. And Schneider now with the serve for Team Canada. Just clips the top of the net. Ralda over to the other side. Nice move by Ban. Tipped over just in front by Perrin, but Guatemalan's able to recover. Ban again finding room to move back and keep the ball in place. Sent back over by Canada. Ralda sets it up. Another kill attempt, and the third try works for Neary. And the Guatemalans get the point. So another nice volley there twice. Some lengthy action to start this second set. Tied at 1. Franco now.
Now, the Canadian reception's just been remarkable. Blair Band's really taking control of the backcourt. He's got his passers all organized. Everyone, oops, I might have spoken too soon there. But until that point, everything looked very controlled.
A violation called against Canada, so Guatemala will get the point. 2-1, they lead. Now serving for the Guatemalans, Brendan Franco. He gets it over. Schmidt gets the point for Canada, 2-2. And again, he had no problem finding that big hole towards the middle of the court.
The Guatemalan block was definitely a little late on that play, so Schmidt almost had an entire court to hit at.
Perrin with the serve. Ralda over for Neary. Bumped up. Now in front, and an easy point for Gavin Schmidt, who once again found a large piece of open court.
Now it's early in the second set, but you can already tell that Guatemala is trying to find some holes in the court using different tactics of little tips or roll shots over the block, because that block really killed them in the first set.
That one is sent right out of bounds. That was Jose Gonzalez. 4-2, Canada now up by 2, and Perrin will serve. Ralda sets it up for Neary. Nice block of the net, but kept in play by the Guatemalans. Like you said, Claire, they're trying to find that open spot. Ralda will set it up once again, and this time it's Blanco firing it down into some open space, 4-3. And the Guatemalans staying right with the Canadians here early in this second set. Serving now is Ralda for Guatemala, and it's just out of bounds, so Canada gets the point back, gets the ball back, 5-3. And Blair Ban will take a seat. Verhoef with the serve. Set at the front of the net. Blanco sends it. Looked like out of bounds, but it was tipped off of the Canadians. Not sure who got a piece of that, but the Guatemalans getting the ball, and a crucial point to stick within one of Canada, 5-4. Canada with the lead. Neary serves it, tips the net, but gets it over. And a nice try at the net, but Canada gets the point, going up for the block of Blanco.
Now it looks like Guatemala is starting to settle into this match a little bit. I think in the first set there might have been some nerves. Canada is the third-ranked team of this tournament. Guatemala, I believe, is 7th. So it looks like maybe they're a little bit more comfortable in the match now, and they're ready to push Canada and just have learned Canada's tendencies as well, and are ready to play with that.
Powerful serve there by Schmidt, And the Guatemalans can't handle it. Ball flails off of them well out of play. So 7-4 Canada in the lead, and Schmidt will look to do the same again. And once again, the Guatemalans can't handle it. It was Pineda that time, and looking not unlike Christensen we saw for the United States earlier, just powerful serves that the other team couldn't handle, and Canada up 8-4 here at the first timeout and starting to pull away a little bit, but maybe this timeout a good thing here for Guatemala, a chance to regroup a little.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the bye into the semifinals, that 2 teams will be awarded based on win-loss ratio, but also points for and against. Now, this is one of the matches where I'd say the top team has come out the strongest. Canada, it seems like, is really pushing for that points for and against ratio. The Americans didn't go with their starting lineup earlier today. The Cubans switched up their lineup a lot and let a lot of points go against Bahamas that they probably could have pushed for a little better. And so Canada really looks like they're putting the pressure on here. And I think they're really gunning for that bye into the semifinals.
Well, why not make life a little easier on yourself, right?
Absolutely. And like we were talking about earlier, only one team in the Norceca Championships this year is going to get that berth into the 2013 Grand Champions Cup. And the winner of the Grand Champions Cup gets $1 million. So it's definitely a tournament you want to get to and win.
Well, that's so critical for any team, and funding's always so hard to come by, and that. So obviously massive incentive, and it's sent out of play by the Guatemalans. 9-4 now. Canada has opened up a 5-point lead. Schmidt retains the serve. This is the second set in the Canada-Guatemala matchup. Canada easily taking the first 25-10. Schmidt fires one over. Pineda sends it right back unintentionally. Set up for Canada, and Seamack with the attack and gets the point. 10-4, smashing it down.
So far, Schmidt's had 2 aces in this game. Strong serve here. The Guatemalans are just trying to get it up so they can get some sort of an attack off of it.
See if he aims for the libero once again. He does, right to him. Set up though by the Guatemalans. Now set for the Canadians. Winters trying to find the back end of the court. He doesn't, but it doesn't matter as it's tipped out of play off of the Guatemalan libero, and 11-4 Canada now with a 7-point lead. Timeout called by the Guatemalans.
Now, Guatemala, I find, is really struggling defensively here. They're not putting up a very solid block, and it's making it hard for their defenders in the back row to play around that block and then get a defensive dig that they can get an attack off of. And so I think that maybe their coach is going to change something up, or they're going to try to find a different strategy to play with the Canadians in this match.
Well, they're going to have to try to find something. You were saying, earlier in the set when they're staying with Canada, basically 1-1, 1 point here, 1 point the other side, and they sort of settled down a little bit and found their game, but, well, they're going to have to find it again.
Looks like Canada's settling down, too.
Yeah, I would say. 11-4, Canada leading in the second set.
An awesome crowd here. It's just so nice to see the Norceca Championships finally being held in Canada after so long, but to see a great crowd, really proud in a lot of red and white out there, hey?
Absolutely. First match of the tournament for Canada, but a great showing by the fans. Seamack with another point, 12-4. And, a bigger crowd you'd expect later, but this really bodes well for the later matches in the tournament.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the easiest matches Canada will have.
Schmidt still serving for Canada, and again, right to the libero. Schmidt now set up once again for Schmidt, and he'll get the point for Canada as well, finding the open court at the back. 13-4. Dustin Schneider getting a touch on the ball there as well. So Schmidt has opened up quite a nice little serving streak here. Oops. And I jinxed him.
You spoke too soon, Jeff. You spoke too
soon.
Sent
right into the net, and a bit of relief for Guatemala, I'd say, as they were having trouble receiving a lot of his serves. Pineda will sit down. Serving now for the Guatemalans is Blanco. Blanco, aggressive serve. He'll get the ace. Perrin has it bounce right off his arms and out of play. 13-6, Guatemala getting a point back. 2 points in a row for them. Blanco serving for the second straight time, but just out of bounds. Not by much, but Canada gets the ball back 14-6.
The Guatemalans definitely seem to be putting a lot more heat on their serves this set. And I think it's because, like we talked about earlier, they have nothing to lose, so they might be a bit riskier with their service.
The captain, Fred Winters, serving. Pineda, first touch. Ralda sets it up at the net. Blair
Huge
Ban,
dig.
nice dig for the libero for Team Canada. Perrin sends it over. Looked like it might have gone out, and a nice block by Seamac. Somehow the Guatemalans keep it in play. Nicely done, but an over-the-head bump by Pineda sends it into the net. But nice plays on both sides of the court there, Claire.
Yeah, that was some big defense. And in men's volleyball, you often don't see big defense because their hits are just at such a great angle towards the court that it's hard to get under that ball or play around the block.
Winters serving again, set up by Ralda. Ban looked like he might have got the dig there, but Seamac couldn't handle it. 15-7, Guatemalans getting a point back.
I think he tried to scoop that ball up a little too much.
Couldn't get away with that time. And Jose Reyes now serving for Guatemala. Just gets it over. Blair Ban now set up at the front of the net for Perrin. And Canada gets the point. 16-7, second time out of the second set. And again, Canada's really cruising along here, not having much trouble.
These matches are good to open up the tournament with, though, for both teams. For Canada, it's nice to start the tournament off with a bit of a weaker team, be able to settle in, maybe practice, work with your lineup a little bit more, get some other players in there, which hasn't really happened so far this match, but who knows what we'll see from Glenn Hogue in the future. And then also for a team like Guatemala, who might not be expected to beat Canada, but their future match against Mexico, they'll be able to ease in here and then get some rhythm going. And if they want to make it to the quarterfinals or the semifinals, they'll need to beat that other team.
Now, how are these pools arranged in terms of, because you don't have the best three against each other. You don't have Canada, the US, and Cuba, for example, all in one pool lumped together.
No. So there's 3 pools in this tournament, and the top 3 teams, Canada, the United States, and Cuba, are all split into 3 different pools. And then from that, it's arranged so that they are semi-equal teams in all of the pools. So, for example, the only time that Canada will either meet the Cubans or the Americans will only be in the playoffs. They wouldn't ever meet them in the preliminary round.
So we're set to get going here, and Schmidt sits down. Dallas Sunius has entered the match for Team Canada. Seamac serving for the Canadians, up 16-7. Nice block at the net. Canada getting the point. 17-7, now a double-digit lead for the Canadians. Dustin Schneider with a nice play at the net. And Seamac will serve again. Sends that one to the middle of the court. Ralda sets it up, and another nice block. Top of the net. Rudy Verhoof. 18-7, Canada leads. Some Guatemalan cheers in the crowd as well.
It's nice to see that.
It's been neat to see the representatives of different teams in the building over the weekend getting set up for the tournament. Nice block at the front of the net, but Pineda gets it set back up. Neary finds some open space on the Canadian side, gets the point. 18-8, and the Guatemalans will get the serve back. Now it is Oscar Garcia serving, the captain for Guatemala. Nice serve. Perrin gets a piece of it, tipped over by Verhoof. Nice dig, though, by Pineda. Power move by Gonzalez, but another nice dig by the Canadian side. Ban sets it up for Perrin, finds some open space at the back, and the Guatemalans can't quite reach it. 19-8. Canada had to work a little harder for that one.
Yep. But you can see that Canada's got great ball control. No matter what kind of ball the Guatemalans give them, they can do something. Whether that's the setter, Dustin Schneider, pardon me, setting up the ball, or if he makes the first contact, Blair Band sets the ball up nicely as well.
Clearing the court a bit on the Guatemalan side, and now the call for serve. Ralda bumps that one over for Gonzalez, but he sends it out of bounds. 20-8, Canada with a 12-point lead. Canadians did take the first set 25-10, and the Guatemalans will use their second timeout of this second set.
At this point, you've got to be asking yourself, what is the Guatemalan coach saying to the Guatemalans? They're in a difficult position right now. They're down by 12 points. I think they started to find some success when they switched up the shots and stopped just trying to hit the ball with a lot of velocity over to the other side, because as you can see, the Canadians are leading with blocking 10-0, which is pretty dominant. So I think that they're going to try to keep going with that strategy of trying to find the court in creative ways.
Well, Guatemala has their work cut out for them, needless to say. They're down 20-8 here in this second set. Dustin Schneider serving once again for Canada. Ralda sets it up, sent over the net. Now it's Verhoef who sets it up for the Canadians. Dallas Sunias will get credit. It's tipped out of bounds off the Guatemalans, so 21-8. Schneider still with the serve. Ralda will set once again for Gonzalez. This time Schneider gets a touch on it, but Band can't dive out and reach it. 21-9, getting a point back is Guatemala. Pineda will take a seat, and they will make a substitution as well, as a second Gonzalez will come in. Actually, he'll replace Jose Gonzalez. This is Gerardo Gonzalez, number 5 for the Guatemalans. Schneider sets it at the front of the net. Perrin sends it over. Guatemala able to get it back in play. Neary, but a double block in front of the net. Canada getting the point. 22-9. Canada gets the serve back.
Now that's just a really effective block. When you can get 3 blockers up there in the right position, all close together, closing off that section of the court, it makes it very hard for a hitter to score.
Gonzalez at the front of the net. Canada gets the point as Blanco couldn't send it over. 23-9. Perrin will keep serve. Reyes sets it over again. 3 big bodies at the front of the net for Canada. Reyes towards the back of the court. Schneider now over for Winters, but he sends it. Oh, it looked like it was going to go to bounds, but the line judge is saying that it was tipped out. Unfortunate for the Guatemalans, as it looked like that ball off Winters was going to head out of bounds anyway, but Canada gets the point. It's set point 24-9. And the 2 Gonzalez's will switch up once again. Another substitution. Perrin serves, middle of the court, set by Ralda, and the Guatemalans will get the point that time. Blanco still set point for Canada, 24-10. Ralda. Schneider over for Winters, and Canada will get the point. Tipped out of bounds off of Garcia, 25-10, duplicating what Canada did in the first set. So a pair of 25-10 victories. Canada leads 2-0. And we'll take another quick break here and be back for third set action live at the Langley Events Center. out of bounds, however, and Canada keeping serve, getting the point 2-0.
Now, I'm not sure if you guys at home can see this on the webcast, but Canada's block is so strong. They're so high, they almost have their arms up to their armpits over that net, which makes it really difficult as a hitter to hit around.
So Canada keeping the point, 3-0, and just got word that the webcast cut out for a second or two there, but we're all back, all is good, so apologies if you missed anything. Canada's up 3-0 in set 3. They took both the first and second sets, 25-10 over Guatemala. Dustin Schneider still serving for Canada. Pineda set up at the front and tipped out of bounds off of Blair Band, so the point going to the Guatemalans, 3-1. They're on the board. Blanco will come in while the libero Pineda takes a seat, and serving for Guatemala is Brandon Franco. And a close eye by Ban watches the serve fly right out of bounds. 4-1, the Canadians get the serve back, and Gord Perrin now for Canada. Neary going for the attack, triple body presence at the front of the net for Canada. Sunius going down with the dig for the Guatemalans was Garcia, but he sends it right out of bounds, couldn't control. 5-1.
Put a lot of velocity behind that ball, though.
Would have been tough for anyone to control that. Might have got a bit lucky. This time Garcia able to control it up for Neary, but a nice block by Sunius at the net, timed it perfectly. 6-1, Canada's opened up a lead early in the third set.
Sunius' hands were literally over top of the net, pressing. You know, if he got his hands on that ball, which he did, it was almost impossible for the hitter to score.
Timeout now called by the Guatemalans.
Now, I think for all the games, all the sets we've seen today, this is the strongest lead we've seen at this point. Almost all the teams have been pretty even up until the 8-point mark, but 6-1. Canada is controlled, and they are comfortable right now.
They're having an easy time so far in this third set, 6-1. Lots to go, though, but they do have a 2-0 lead, sitting comfortably. But I guess that's the key, don't get comfortable.
Exactly.
Perrin will serve after the Guatemalan timeout. Set at the front of the net, and a nice point for the Guatemalans, just finding that back far corner. Not much room, but they found it, 6-2. And now it's Ralda serving.
That's a tough ball to defend for Blair Band, just because when it's hit into that deep corner, you're sort of expecting sometimes the hit to be a bit sharper.
Winters, but a nice block by the Guatemalans. Gonzalez, Winters will try it again. They're gonna have to hope that ball gets over. And it didn't. Canada with the point, 7-2.
Canada now leads 14 blocks to Guatemala's 0.
Wow, that's a telling stat, but that's why Canada's up, and in a big way. Verhoef with the serve. Franco slamming down, getting the point, and so the Guatemalans will get the ball right back. 7-3 for Canada in this third set. Verhoef now will step out. Set by Schneider at the front of the net. Winters! Nice ball by him, finding the backcourt. 8-3, Canada with the point, and that's our first time out of the third set. And Canada really looking strong here, Claire, and like we've seen in other matches where the other team able to kind of stick around early on, but both in the second set and now here in the third, Canada's really led the way strong early.
And Canada's really had an incredible season this summer. They made it to the World League Finals for the very first time in Canadian men's volleyball history. They beat Russia, the defending Olympic gold medalists from the London Games. And honestly, they just have a lot of momentum in their favor right now. And I think they don't want to accept mediocrity. They want to go for everything. They want to accomplish as much as they can. And I really think they want that gold medal more than they've ever wanted before. But I think they're in the best position they've ever been to get that gold medal. And I really think that this opening game shows how focused they are for this whole tournament. They're not letting up. They're not giving the Guatemalans an inch.
Glenn Hogue is getting a lot out of his team. Like you were saying, great performance so far this year. And, you know, they've got a good mix of young and more experienced players, and we talked about that earlier during the United States-St. Lucia match, where, you know, you have some veteran players like Winters, but then you have some younger guys like Blair Band, for example, who's really adding a lot to this team.
I think in the past, one of Canada's faults has been that they couldn't rely on their depth. But what we're seeing this season is Glenn Hogue can switch out that lineup a lot of different ways and still get successful wins out of his team, which is awesome because you want to be able to count on a whole bunch of players on your bench, and that's what he's doing, and I think that's going to be huge for Canada.
Sunius sent it out of bounds, so the Guatemalans get the serve back. Set up by Schneider. Sunius finds the open court, gets the point. 9-4, they get the ball right back. And now the captain, Winters, will serve for Canada. Clips the top of the net, but is in play. Set up for Franco, and the point will go to the Guatemalans. 9-5. So they trade a couple points either way. Jose Gonzalez serving for the Guatemalans now. Gonzalez gets it over the net. Blair Band set up now by Schneider at the front of the net, tipped over. But now Garcia will have to go for the kill shot, but it's right into the net. So Canada with the point. 10-5. Seamak now will serve for Canada.
Now I think there's a little bit of chirping going on over the net. I'm not sure if you saw that, but I'm not sure if you could see that on the webcast, but
what
fun
language
fact.
was it in?
Ooh, Spanglish.
Yeah, nice block at the net for Canada. Rudy Verhoof. And that will allow Seamak to hold on to the serve. 11-5 for Team Canada. Neary towards the back of the court. Set up for Garcia, but a nice block. Verhoof again. 12-5. And we're going to have a substitution now for Guatemala. Gerardo Gonzalez will come in favor of Oscar Garcia. And maybe is that an attempt just to disrupt the serve a little bit, Claire?
Absolutely. That's a strategy that's often used by coaches when they don't want to take that time out, but they want to somehow disrupt the rhythm of the other team. And also just to get some fresh blood into the passing there. You never know what someone can do. Look, Garcia with a perfect pass there.
Nice block at the net, though, and after an initial touch, the Guatemalans couldn't find it out of bounds. 13-5. Seamak still serving for Canada.
Another strategy that sometimes can be used when there's some serve-receive problems is just to switch up who the server's looking at, right? So that can be either achieved by a substitution or just switching up who's passing in the back row.
Nice volley action here. Gonzalez gets the point, finds the open court. Seamak couldn't get to it. 13-6. Gonzalez now. Gerardo Gonzalez serving for Guatemala. Canada up 13-6 in this third set. Right to Blair Band, the Canadian libero. And a nice point for Verhoof. Finds the back of the court, 14-6.
That was close. From here, I wasn't sure what kind of a call he was going to make. You could see the lines guy almost hesitate for just a second and then put the flag down.
Schneider serving once again for Canada. Just gets it over. Pineda hitting it first. Now over for Neary, and a nice touch by Neary. Canada, though, able to keep it in play. Sent back over by the captain, Winters. Now sit at the front for Neary again. Nice block for Hoof. Great plays on both sides of the net there. 15-6, Canada with a 9-point lead.
Guatemala is still searching for their first block. They still don't have any compared to Canada, which now has 18 blocks. really a strength of the Canadians this past season. It's been their blocking.
Schneider just gets it over, set up for Neary, and he puts it out of bounds. No, tipped out. Look, Masunius must have got a piece of it. 15-7, so the Guatemalans, they'll make a substitution before they serve. So it will be Jorge Garcia, or Ramiro Garcia in, and he will serve.
Now, if I'm Jorge and I'm getting subbed in to serve, I'm just going to try to put the most pressure on this ball as possible. And he misses, but when you're down by 8 points, you know, you've got nothing to lose, you're just going to give her.
So he did send it right into the net. 16-7, Canada cruising again, a 9-point lead. So what do you do now if you're Guatemala? You've lost the first 2 sets. You're down in the third big time.
Well, you never want to give up. That's my first response. If I'm the coach of Guatemala, I'm trying to offer some new advice. Maybe look at what's been working on the stats-wise. They've had some more success getting Canada off balance with those off-speed shots, with those tips right behind the block. But more importantly, the rest of the tournament matters. This one game isn't crucial at this point. Obviously, they want to win it, but at this point, it's going to be a very hard comeback to make. So I want to maybe get some fresh blood into the court, build a bit of confidence going forward into that next match of the tournament, if possible.
You know, like you say, you don't want to give up, but you know that it's a tough task. But yeah, you want that momentum going in.
Definitely. Momentum's hard to build. It's going to be a struggle right now for Guatemala, for any team at this point when you're down 7-16. But what I'm interested to see is how Canada goes for the rest of the set. Are they going to let up, or are they going to keep pushing the pressure on?
Perrin with the serve as we return to action. Neary tries to get it over, but Sunius with the block. Canada gets the point. 17-7, 10-point lead for the Canadians. And Perrin retains the serve. Set up on the far side this time for Guatemala. Schneider gets a first touch. Ban sets it up for Sunius, and it's tipped out of bounds by the Guatemalans. 18-7 for Canada. Perrin still serving. Set up at the front of the net, and just outside. Ooh, the far linesman ruled it outside. So does the referee. What are they going to rule here? Yeah.
I think Blanco's just disappointed because that was one of the best connections Guatemala's had this whole match with that quick attack, and even though it was close, it was out, and he's just frustrated.
Well, you also saw the referees, the assistant ruled the point to Guatemala, so it's a bit of confusion there, but Canada gets the point, 19-7, and yeah, a tough one for the Guatemalans for sure. Ban bumps it up towards the net. Canada gets it over and down. Sunius with the point, 19-7, make that 20-7 now. And timeout called by Guatemala, their last in a 13-point hole here, Claire, in this third set. And what would the coach be telling his players at this point?
Well, I'm just trying to look at some of his actions right now, and he looks to be talking to the setter a lot about maybe releasing it from his hands, maybe trying to get a quicker offense, because the Canadian block is so high and so strong that maybe if they can try to run a faster offense, they can trick some of the Canadian blockers into maybe committing on some of the sets and the hits and the jumps. But the coach right now, I think he's probably just trying to tell his players anything to keep them positive and keep them fighting in this match, because it really is not over until one team wins by 2 or gets to 25 first.
Perrin with the serve for Canada. Set at the front of the net. And Guatemala does get the point. That was Blanco, 20-8. And now Ralda will serve. Set at the front of the net. Schneider, Sunius, and it hits a body and it goes out of bounds. Falling over, that was Ralda. 21-8, Canada gets the serve back.
Now, Sunius has only been playing for half of this match, and he's got 5 kills. Schmidt has 7, Perrin has 6, Winters has 5. It's an even distribution on the Canada attack at the moment.
That tells you something again about their depth as well and ability. And another point for Canada tipped out of bounds. 22-8, and another serve coming up from Rudy Verhoof.
It builds so much trust and confidence on a team when you know that you can rely on all your hitters. For the setter, it just makes your job easy. You can just put the ball up, and he knows that a lot of people are going to get the job done.
Pineda now set up for Blanco, tipped out of bounds off Verhoof. So the point will go to the Guatemalans. 22-9 for Canada. Guatemalan gets the serve back. Neary will serve. Towards the back of the court. Set up for Winters, trying to find an open spot. Gonzalez keeps it in play. Neary sets it over the net. Perrin going for the kill. And a nice dig by the Guatemalans, still in play. They send it over. Block at the front of the net. Sunias, 23-9 for Canada.
It's a little bit of a late push, but that last rally, the defense on Guatemala's part was quite impressive.
Sunias serving for Canada. Bumped up by Gonzalez. Now back for Gonzalez, but a block by Seamak again at the front of the net. 24-9. It is set point. It is match point for Canada.
I don't think any team at this point has won by, you know what? I shouldn't have even said it. I shouldn't have said it. I even
You're going to
thought
say
about
it with keeping them to single
No, I wasn't.
digits?
I wasn't going to say anything, Jeff.
Okay. But it was sent out of bounds by Sunias. 24-10 remains match point for Canada. Blanco serving for the Guatemalans towards the back of the court. Set up and slamming it down to Seamak for the win. Canada gets the match 25-10. A familiar theme, so a trio of 25-10 set victories for the Canadians, Claire.
That's got to be lucky. 10-10-10, I think it's lucky. But definitely a very dominant win by Canada, especially in the first match of the tournament. They came in cool, collected, calm. They were really in control of that match, which is great to see because they're definitely going to want to build on that match going into the next matches, which are all going to be tougher from this point on.
Canada doing well, getting out to a good start, and you talked about spreading the ball around and how well they were able to distribute their passes and count on everyone. And while that may not seem like a big point today when Canada absolutely dominated against Guatemala, if they're able to get into the medal round, obviously that's going to be crucial.
Absolutely, and Schneider just did an excellent job of that. If we look at the stats, we've got Sunias with 6 kills, Simak with 5, Winters and Perrin with 6 apiece each, and Schmidt with 7. That's just a great distribution, and he knows that he can rely on any of those hitters in the future matches of the Norceca Championship, which will hopefully get them one step closer to qualifying for that Grand Champions Cup.
So Canada with the first match win against Guatemala. Canada's next match coming up on Wednesday against Mexico. It's a bit of a tougher challenge, I guess, for the Canadians and for the Mexicans for that matter. Guatemala, meanwhile, will take on Mexico tomorrow. That's the first match of the day tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Also tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Cuba taking on Puerto Rico. And at 8 o'clock tomorrow, as I check my update, there we go, it's the United States against the Dominican Republic. So that should be an interesting match for sure. And again, Claire, Guatemala taking on Mexico. What would you expect from that? Obviously, Guatemala in a must-win scenario there.
I think that's going to be an interesting match to watch because those two teams will definitely be fighting for that spot in the playoffs. Both teams are somewhat equally matched up. Mexico's ranked 5th in the tournament, Guatemala 7th, I believe. So some of the lower ranked teams, but both of them, as we saw in the opening ceremonies, were a little bit shorter, if you will, than the rest of the teams. So they're going to have to rely really on their defense, some smart strategies offensively, but I really think it's going to be a tight matchup, and those teams both really want to make the playoffs. So one of the more interesting preliminary rounds we're going to see this week.
Canada with the day off tomorrow, at least from tournament play. I'm sure they'll be scouting out Mexico a little bit and some of their other potential future opponents. But Canada getting the 3-set win here, straight sets over Guatemala, 25-10, 25-10, 25-10. And Claire, just some final thoughts on you from how the Canadians looked here tonight.
They just looked really well-rounded, Jeff. They did what they needed to do to win that match. They had great blocking, and I think that was a huge asset for them against Guatemala. And it's also a skill that just takes precise thought. So they just need to make sure they place that block in the right place, jump up with a purpose, and get their hands up on that ball. And it can end a rally really quickly, so they don't need to use a lot more energy. But as we saw the scores, 25-10, 10, and 10, that's a great start for them in the tournament. And moving forward, I think that they'll have to scout the other oppositions differently and figure out what skills they're going to have to pull on to pull out those wins in future games against maybe Cuba, Mexico, the United States, whoever they meet.
Well, an easy victory for the Canadians here tonight against Guatemala. And again, first match tomorrow, Mexico against Guatemala. That's at 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Cuba taking on Puerto Rico. And then at 8 o'clock tomorrow, the United States and the Dominican Republic. And of course, all of those available via video webcast live right here from Langley. For Claire, Hanna, this is Jeff Sargeant. Canada with the straight sets win over Guatemala at the Norceca 2013 Continental Championships, live from the Langley Events Center.